Hey everyone, I'm Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, the podcast where we're talking to industry leaders in real estate about what's changing and all the big latest going on. Boy, that sucked. All right, so it's been a long summer. Start again. Hey everyone, I'm Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, the podcast where we're talking to real estate industry leaders about what's happening in the industry. It's been a bit of a summer break, and we're back. So this is, I don't know if we'll do seasons or not, but we could call this kind of season 3 in the fall of 2024. Had a couple months off, and super glad to be back, and excited to welcome my first guest, Gene Millman. Hey, Gene.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you
for being here.
Well, thank you for the invite. It's an honor and a privilege to be sitting here looking forward to our chat.
Oh, awesome. So Gene is, and I'm going to speak about you in the third person for a moment. So Gene was most recently the CEO of REcolorado, the state's largest MLS, and I think nationally recognized as one of the most innovative MLSs in the country. And Gene, I first met you at one of my real estate innovation hub events. I don't know how we kind of bumped into each other, but you were there, and that was awesome. And if you want to know more about that, you can look it up. But I remember sitting with you at lunch with 2 other people, and within 20 minutes of listening to you, I learned more about MLSs than, a lifetime worth of being in the industry. And it wasn't incomprehensible. It was, it all made sense. And I was like, oh, that's great. So you popped to mind when I was thinking about the semester with my university course here, talking to students. I usually take 60 seconds to talk about MLSs, and that's kind of my level of knowledge of them and what they do. But I thought, man, what if we just pulled that out and did 60 minutes? And not just MLSs, but just the industry. I mean, you've had a critical role in what's happening and a great seat at the table to see the change from that boots on the ground level. So I'm excited to kind of pick that apart in class today and also today on the podcast.
Yeah, well, perfect. And I think you're selling yourself probably slightly short of your 60 seconds of knowledge of the MLS, but no, and absolutely the Innovator Hub group that I was blessed to be invited to, some amazing people, both not only in the Colorado space, but across the country. And it was definitely, I think, one of the great sharing of ideas and just getting people's thoughts on the challenges and opportunities they saw coming forth. So it was an honor to be there. So it's a great session you have there.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right. So, Gene, I'll ask you the question I typically ask everybody. How do you typically start your day?
Oh, my God. I'm a morning person versus a nighttime person. So usually I'm up around 5 o'clock in the morning. I like to sit back and have my cup of coffee and watch a little bit of news. And, I think as we all do, we probably check our emails a little too early in the morning, but usually you run through your emails and kind of gauges what your day may or may not look like. And I'm a big component of working out. So I typically take about 45 minutes to an hour to work out most mornings. And then I start my day thinking about how I can do great things for this industry.
Awesome. That sounds really great. So you have kids, right?
Yeah, I have 3 children, a son and 2 daughters, and 8 grandchildren.
Wow. All right, so I don't know if you want to do the grandchildren are probably pretty young. So
yeah, they are.
If you sat down with one of your kids, how would you explain to them what an MLS is and does?
They have been blessed because this year was my 40th year in the industry. And started as a practitioner, was on really the practitioner, broker owner side for 32 of those years and about 8 years on the MLS side now. Was involved in the MLS from a practitioner point of sitting on boards and things back on the East Coast. I'm going to rephrase your question if I can a little bit. So my kids kind of know what I do because they've just kind of lived through it and see it. But I would tell you, my father-in-law, when I went to this side of the business, he still does not know what I do as an MLS. He said, what do you do? Because he only thinks real estate of listing and selling properties. So I guess if I had to explain what I do, it is really running a company that is a mixture of data, tech, and service. So most of the time if you're on a plane, the first thing people ask you is, you're sitting next to them, they say, what do you do? And I said, well, my prior piece was I was a president and CEO of an MLS. And they're like, oh, the Major League Soccer Association? And I'm like, no. And then I explained it. But I think today what an MLS is, it's a data tech. And I think the key that's being left out today is a service. And what you're trying to do is every day give the best service to your subscribers that pay for the service on typically monthly that they have the tools and access to go make a living for their families and help be a part of the American dream of homeownership. And every day, that's what I try to do. That's what I get up, and that's what I think an MLS really is. But it's kind of complicated from the data aspect, from the technology aspect, but there's a great piece of service as well.
So to keep the thread going on the MLSs, they've, and again, my knowledge, I think my knowledge is pretty limited in that space, but it's 2024, right? I mean, MLSs have been around for decades and they started in the age without internet. Why do we still need them?
When I started in the business, everyone can talk about the books, the books that you came out probably every 2 weeks or so with the pictures in that and those sort of things. Then we started to move toward and migrate toward a little bit of the dial-up system of a system called Boris years ago that you had to do. What MLSs do, in my opinion, is it's a few things. One is they truly help create marketplaces. Because just think, if the data was fragmented, if every brokerage out there only had their own databases, how could it be shared across platforms? And really, the MLS is that platform where it takes that data that they have, so as the property information as they enter it in, that they in turn, what the MLS does, they normalize it, they standardize it, and they make it consumable to regurgitate back out to them and be able to share that with the consumer. What a lot of people don't realize, though, about the MLSs, so there's a lot of what we call third-party aggregators or syndicators in the marketplace. And so like Zillow, for example, people say, well, Zillow has all the information. Well, Zillow only has the information because they get a data feed from the MLSs to have that data in there. So truly, we are what I consider the truth of source. The MLSs are, because of how we aggregate that data. It's important for us to protect the data. And I think that's something that is definitely becoming more and more top of mind for both the MLSs and for the brokerages. So why do they exist? Because they help to create that marketplace that makes everything work.
Yeah.
For the brokerage. I don't think any of us would ever want to go back. The story that I've heard about listings is how that came up about a property being listed is brokers would have listings in their pockets, and they would come in and say, well, here's my listing and here's your listing. And, there wasn't any way to accumulate that data. They're important for today. As you and I were kind of talking prior to our getting on air here, was I think MLSs, and I think the industry overhaul needs to really sit back and think about reinventing itself. What's the value proposition? Really, where do we move this industry forward? This country, it's done a great job of having real estate really work well, I think. And I think it has benefited the consumer, benefited the agents. Other countries don't have this type of system that we have.
Yeah.
And I think I still think it's a critical part, but I do think it's time to reimagine maybe what they do. It's the
Okay.
industry as a whole.
Yeah. So before we get to that, for any international listeners, there's about 550 MLSs in the US.
Yeah, a little less, probably 530, 535, something like
Okay.
that.
So short answer, is that the right amount, too many, or too little?
Oh, God, that question gets asked all the time, Mike. And
You can pass if you want.
I think consolidation continues to happen. Definitely from the brokerage piece. There's brokerages out there that are having to be a member of 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 different MLSs. I'm being negative toward those, but I think that, yes, consolidation continues to need to go down. We always get asked, what's the right number? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 75? I think natural marketplaces will take place as the consolidation takes place. But yet, do I believe that 500-ish, whatever, are too many? Yes.
Yeah.
It's a financial burden on the brokerage that have to do that, as well
Right.
as the agents.
Right. So you talked about MLSs now needing to reinvent themselves.
Right.
What's one thing you would either, one specific thing you'd change about the role of MLSs, or just one general trend that you think they need to start paying more and more attention to?
Well, like I said, I think if you would go out and ask many of the MLSs, what do you think your company is? And I think a lot of them may say data technology company. And I would say, you're right, you are. But I think the service is a different piece today. And I know definitely many of the brokers, they use this analogy. Well, look, we don't want the MLS to level the playing field. We like to have our own individual pieces of what our value proposition is at our brokerage. And I don't think MLSs should get in that space. Everyone has that. But I would say the thing that with the current environment of everything that's going on in the industry, I think sitting down and becoming business partners with your brokerages and their brokers and agents, you need to start listening because they have some main pain points. I know that was something that we did when I was CEO, that we went out and sat down, and you find out that they're running back office systems with 30 and 40 different softwares.
Mm.
And we're like, well, how can we help you with that? Are they talking to each other? Well, I don't think so. Well, how many times are you taking one property and data entering it into a system? Well, that's time for someone to sit there. And I think that person can be more valuable in a company, not just be data entry.
Right.
I think the thing today is that the MLSs, they can't just talk about engaging with their subscribers and being their business, but they actually have to show them that they are. I know, again, from my career, when we went out to meet some of the brokerages, they have said that they have been in the business for 30 and 40 years, and they never had an MLS executive team go and sit down and talk to them and ask them.
Wow.
So I think it's that transparency of what we do. I
Mhm.
think it's an education because a lot of people don't know what an MLS does. They
Mm.
really don't. And I think it's transparency, it's building that business partnership. I think that needs to be done so much right now because I think we're missing the mark and they appreciate that. So I would say that engagement is important. And that's where the service piece comes in. And I think that's what they're looking for.
So many disruptors have come into the space over the past 2 decades, tech companies, people from outside of the industry, right?
Mhm.
And when they start looking at the industry, they think, oh, MLSs, we don't need them. We'll just replace that with technology. What are they missing?
There's a lot of data companies out there. You just said it. They've got the data. They can do that. Real estate is about relationships. Real estate is about building those relationships kind of almost one-on-one. And I think what happens is these third parties don't have that same relationship with the subscriber the way an MLS has that
Mm.
relationship with the subscriber. Or let me put it this way, should have that relationship with the subscriber. And I think that is missing today of understanding that piece of it. So I think it is the local touch, it's the personal touch that I don't think these, some of the syndicators will be able to duplicate that. Because real
Hmm.
estate, regardless of what we say, is local.
Right.
There's little nuances. Everyone has, what someone called a waterfront. Some people call it lakefront. Some people call it, this. There's all these different things, and only local markets know how to deal with those.
I'll share this. Last week in class, it was my first class. I went around and asked the students, these are all early 20 somethings, probably 21 years old, grew up with iPhones, technology, right? The whole kit and caboodle the whole time. Asked them, if you owned a home and you were going to sell, or if you wanted to buy a home, what's the first thing you would do? I just kind of went around. Every single student said, I would talk to a real estate agent. Every single one. And then I asked them, how would you find an agent to talk to? And same thing. They're like, oh, I'd ask my friends. I'd ask my family. I think my mom knows somebody. I have an uncle who I would start there.
Yeah.
So these young kids grew up on technology. They'd start with a real estate agent and they would find the agent through a referral.
Yeah.
Right. Through all that. And
Absolutely.
I offered to them, I was like, there's probably a website where you can go to find like the best agent, by certain criteria. And they're like, yeah, maybe. But nobody offered that. Every single person.
You've actually hit right on the spot of relationships and making sure how important it is for agents. They really try to build that customer for life. Many agents do it really well. Some don't do it as well. That's just part of business. You're going to have some that are better than others at it. But that is so encouraging, Mike, for you to sit there and tell that story, because I will tell you, that's what every agent works for, is to have that opportunity to get that referral, to build those customers for life. I know when I was selling real estate, as I said, I did it for 32 years. The biggest honor for me was that I actually sold some people a house. I ended up then selling their children's their house. And even being in law, I actually sold their children's houses.
Wow.
So it was like 3 generations of that. And that's what you work for. So it's great and so encouraging to hear that your students still understand the power of that referral and that relationship that someone probably has, that agent has built with someone in their sphere
Yeah.
that is important to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need.
Yeah. I was really blown away.
I'm actually encouraged by that. I thought the answer was going to be different as
I,
well.
I know. I start every semester the same way, and I'm constantly surprised.
Yeah.
So if we put the relationship thing, which is clearly important, to the side for a moment, and think just about technology, what kind of technology do you think the industry needs right now?
What I've observed, and just from these conversations, both from other MLSs, from speaking to the brokerages in the marketplace, is there's so many different widgets out there to do things. But I would tell you where I think the biggest pain point is in technology. None of it talks together. You need to start having interoperability. One system has to be able to talk to the other. It is surprising when you have tech people from the outside come into the real estate space and you go there and you ask, we want to get a Reds feed. And they're like, what feed? Why can't you use an API? And the situation is that we need to start building more modern ways for this information to exchange with each other, and it doesn't talk to each other. And I would say from the tech piece, I mean, there's so many tech companies out there that is trying to serve a need, or they've created a need that they think somebody needs. But the problem is, we talked to some brokerages that actually have 15, 20, one I talked to 40 some backend systems, and they don't talk to each other. So I guess from the tech piece is, everyone wants to talk about collaboration. Everyone wants to talk about we need to work better together. Well, that goes to the tech companies as well. They need to be able to build things that can talk to each other and stop being so proprietary in what they do.
Yeah.
Technology that continues to help the agent or a broker collaborate more seamlessly with the end consumer. I really think, and I'm sure a lot of people disagree with what I'm going to say right now, we used to call it B2B. So it was kind of, the MLS to the brokers. They were our customers. They are. They're our store customers. They pay us. But I also think there is a path forward to have B to B to C, and that is to the end consumer, to that buyer and seller. We're not trying to intermediate that. But I think there's a way the MLS can help the broker have a seamless relationship, a better relationship with that consumer from a tech side, a follow-up perspective, whatever. I think there's space there, and I know a lot of the brokers out there say, no, don't get in between me and the customer. And I don't believe that the MLS should be there, but I think it could help enhance something there.
Can you give me one example of B2B to C?
So I know a lot of, again, some brokers are going to probably not like this if they listen to it, but the follow-up piece that we've kind of talked about, building that customer for life, a lot of their agents don't do that. Whether that brokerage has a system for them to continue to follow up after the closed sale, I'm sure many of them do, but where could we help support that? Could there be after the close? Because a lot of times MLSs were built in what? Input and search. I think, why couldn't we, after close, help in some way? Could we help with some drip campaigns? Could we help with anniversary things? Could we help in some way with that? Not to take over, but maybe just provide a system that can be branded to the brokerage if they want it. That's where I see, how do we create an ecosystem?
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've created an ecosystem yet here that it allows that. And I think that we need to create an ecosystem with the brokers, not having them thinking we're stepping on toes or that we're trying to level the playing field.
I like how you preface that. You're like, oh, maybe some brokers don't agree with this. Just to dig into that a little bit more, what's an opinion you have that you don't think many people agree with?
I think some people, as we've talked about, reinventing and that ecosystem, probably not everyone agrees with. I also think that, and I've said this and always get some crazy looks when I say this. And one of the things about the reinventing, both yourself, but I think businesses have to reinvent. I mean, we can all go back and look at Kodak, and we could look at Blockbuster. We can all look at those. Maybe those companies didn't reinvent as fast as they should. Nothing against them, but that's what happens in business sometimes. We need to run MLSs like businesses. And people say, well, we do. There's some that do, but a lot that don't. And I think broker involvement needs to be more in the MLS because, so you ask me, what do I do every morning when I get up? I would say that if you went and you asked agents or brokerages, what's the first thing they do in the morning? And I probably would say a large percent was say, I log into the MLS. I know how important that system is. You need to protect it to make sure it will be there for a long time. I think you need to be actively involved in the MLS, whether it's on their boards and those sort of things. But they need to be run as businesses. And I don't think that they're being run that way. So I would think when I would say, I don't know if they would disagree, but I think the brokerages need to go out and make sure they can inspect what they expect from their MLSs.
Inspect what they expect.
Yes. And making sure how's it being run, will it be here for them? Where's their data going? How's it going to be protected? Who's getting it? Who's making money off of it? Those type of things. I think in today's world, I think MLS executives and just a business here, because we need to have what I call warrior mentality. We need to fight every day to making sure that we can provide the best services to our subscribers every day.
Yeah, I mean, what's an example of running an MLS like a business? What does that mean?
Making sure that people on your board, they know how to read a P&L. You make business decisions that are best for the longevity of the company. I think MLSs, and we did a little bit of it in my prior position of having MLS invest in themselves, invest in new initiatives, the REdistribute, the MLS Grid, Nestfully, to really take control of their own destiny and come together as the industry and collaborate with that piece. You're investing in things, you're investing in your future, you're investing in things for your subscribers. You need to run it that way. My thing was always, I wanted a seat at every table.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Well, so I wanted to be in any initiative that was out there. I wanted the option to say yes or say no, because corny analogy, but to me, if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're just on the menu.
Right.
Okay, so I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to know if I could have a glimpse into that crystal ball a little bit with other great-minded MLS executives. I wanted that. So I worked to make sure we had seats at tables, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does. Is that the biggest threat facing MLSs, not running them like a business?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's they're just run in a different way where you really have to understand the business. You can't be run by committees. This industry, in many cases, you have to be able to make decisions very quickly, because as new information comes in, you have to react to that information now that's there.
Yeah.
You have to be agile, you have to ebb and flow, and you're going to have to make some quick decisions. You have a board, definitely the board plays a tremendous role in the organization, but they have to give you the latitude to make those decisions.
Right.
Because I use this analogy, the train may come and stop at your station. You're going to have to make a decision pretty quick some days, whether or not you get on that train or you don't. Because many times that train does not come back. You get one shot. Now, there's some risk involved in making those decisions, but I think that's that warrior mentality.
Yeah.
You have to be able to make decisions quickly and move forward, because this industry, it's changing quickly.
Yeah.
And to sit back and you can't wait 6 months to make a decision.
Right. No, that's really good. And that you've kind of preemptively answered this other question in my mind is, you've been in the industry 40 years. We're in a bit of a downturn now.
Mhm.
What kind of companies are going to do well? And what I'm hearing is agility.
Absolutely. And have some foresight. Surround yourself with smart people. Ask questions. These are some of my executive team would say they're called Gene-isms. I always say you can't get the right answer if you don't ask the right question.
Right.
It starts with asking the right questions. And I think right now you need to be questioning everything. You have to have that inquisitive mind and ask those hard questions as well. That's the key to being nimble. Kind of seeing things ahead. Everything should be, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
I truly believe in strategic planning. I believe that you build these pillars and these value propositions, and every decision should be benchmarked off of that.
Yeah.
What that does then, it keeps you moving forward. And so absolutely, you need to be agile right now.
Great. Love it. If you were going to start a seed venture fund in the industry right now, what kind of companies would you be investing in?
Oh my God. So if they were coming to me, I think that's what you're asking, to invest in them. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, you've got $50 million,
Right.
and you need to invest, write checks, six, 7-figure checks into 10 different companies. What kind of companies would you be looking to invest in?
Well, I would go back to the conversation we had about a company that believes in interoperability, that their system will work across many platforms. It has to. I think it would have to be hopefully asking the right questions so I can get the right answers. What are you trying to solve for in here? Is there a pain point that you can point to me for? I'm probably not going to name companies because there's probably some in someone's garage right now that, some brilliant minds are putting something together that's going to blow the mind of the industry. Today, I think it's much different. The ROI on these are taking a longer time now. That's out there. So, what runway do you have? How long would that return be? And are you adding value to the industry? Are you just doing it to make money?
Those are great questions.
Really, what are you trying to accomplish? And I think the other part, when I probably didn't say it when you asked, what I do first thing in the morning when I get up. Still today, I have a passion and purpose for this industry. And I would say if I was looking at some owners that were looking to do a venture, I would want to sit down with them and where's your passion? Where's your purpose? And are you looking just to be a vendor or are you looking to be a partner with someone? Are you going to partner with this industry? Are you looking for the short nickel or the long dime? What are you looking for here? And I think that to me is, for me, everything can happen when you have passion and purpose.
Yeah.
When you get up every day. And I think that's what I would look for in those startups, and what is that passion and purpose then? So that would be me if I had my $50 million checkbook today to do that.
Great answer. So last question I got for you today, a bit of a retrospective. What's something you know today that you wish you knew 5 years ago?
I would say how political the industry can be, from at least from the side that I was in, that you kind of going back to running a business, you just want to go out and run the best business in the MLS space, I think. And there's a political aspect to the environment. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. You always think, could I navigate it differently? And that maybe. You look back at the past and you look at the lessons learned. You also have to look at the future and how do you apply the lessons learned. And so I would just say today, I'm in the stage of looking to the future and applying the lessons that I've learned in the space, whatever that looks like. And, you and I were talking about this. I said this at Res Media. I'm not retiring. Everyone asks me like, oh, you're just going to retire? And I'm like, man, I'm way too young to retire. I still think the industry needs, a mentality like mine of passion, purpose, and that good things are still ahead for our industry. I think there are challenges, but I think there's so many more opportunities in our industry right now. And there's some great leaders out there. I just think we got to start speaking up. I think we need to tell the story. I think any good leader, Mike, you're a great storyteller. You have to tell the story of who you are, why you exist, and why you're important. And I don't think we have enough storytellers out there. I think we got to tell the story of our industry.
Yeah.
It's a great one. It's a refreshing one. But I don't think we do a good enough job of telling the story of what our value is and why it's so important. And I hope, I'm happy to be that storyteller if that's the case.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. And, the key takeaway for me, just rattling around in my brain here, is around agility, in this time of uncertainty and time of change. So I hope everybody listening is kind of thinking about that. And what I would say for anyone listening, any company, is some of the biggest, most well-resourced businesses in the space right now are quite agile, actually founder-led, founder-controlled. The Zillows, the CoStars, EXP, Compass, whether it's on the portal side, tech side, or brokerage side, these are businesses that fundamentally can move really fast, right? When the train pulls into their station, they don't need to convene a board meeting and wait for the committee to deliberate. These are companies that can move really fast. It's worth anybody thinking about themselves and the business they're with. How fast can I make decisions? And is that going to be a competitive advantage or an Achilles heel for me? All right, cool. So leaving it there, we'll get you into the classroom in a little bit, Gene, but thank you so much for joining.
I appreciate it. It's been an honor to sit across the table from you, Mike. It really has been.
Awesome. This is great. I'm Mike Del Prete. You've been listening to Context, a wildly amazing and insightful podcast. If you want to check out more of my research, you can check out my website, mikedp.com, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.